Be careful. Or we might be 5. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Typically, Marshall's online by now. And so I have texted Mother Susan to see if they're having problems with Zoom at the church. And if I hear anything, I'll let you know. But hopefully, we'll see them show up in just a minute. So want to give you an update.
Hey, Shane. Good morning.
Good morning, Marshall. I was just telling everybody I texted Mother Susan to check on y'all. I was a little, y'all are normally on around 9:10, so I want to make sure everything was good on your side. So good to see you. Everybody's glad to see you, I think.
Hey, good to see you. Thank you. We're running a little bit longer today, so.
That's okay. It happens. I totally understand.
So, guess we're about ready. I have 9:15. Is everybody on Zoom? Can you hear me? Good, good. All right. So our prayer practice, our meditation practice for today is opening to God through body awareness or body movement, praying with our bodies or becoming aware of God in and through our bodies. And so I want to spend a little bit of time this morning reviewing this prayer practice, this way of prayer historically, in our faith and theologically a little bit. And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end to be able to practice some body prayer and don't get worried about it. Nobody's, anytime we mention our body, sometimes we get self-conscious, like we're going to dance or something, we're not today, but we could do liturgical dance, but we're not today. So don't worry. But, but before we do that, before we think about it, I'd actually like for us to do a very simple body prayer. And the body prayer is, these are the words, I'll tell you the words, then I'll give you the gestures. And it's very simple. God above us, that's transcendent, beyond what our minds can when we speak about God above us, we don't mean just spatially up there, but beyond us, transcendent. God beside, well, transcendent mystery. God is bigger than what our minds can understand. I think Aquinas finally said, well, God is beyond what I can think. Great theological mind. But God beyond us, above us, God beside us, incarnate companion. We think of the incarnation, yes, Jesus, God becoming flesh in Jesus, but also the incarnate presence of God in creation, this indwelling spirit of God in creation beside us, in one another. We are extension of the incarnation as the body of Christ. And then God within us, the Holy Spirit praying within us, indwelling wisdom and discerning spirit. So those are the words. And the motions are very simple, and you can close your eyes so you don't have to be self-conscious about it. But God above us, like this, pointing. This is the Oran's position in the Jewish prayer that the priest prays in this position in the Eucharist. Above us, beyond us, God beside us, and God within us. So simple. But if you get your body into it, it provides for a little more awareness of the spirit than if you just think about it. And you'll have to try that and see if that's true, but I find it to be true. So those are the three gestures. It could also be creator, redeemer, think of Jesus on the cross, and sanctifier. Creator, redeemer, sanctifier are the traditional Trinitarian Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And we're going to do all three with pausing, okay, after each one for you to just be with that meditation, those words. Let your mind go to transcendent mystery, incarnate companion, indwelling spirit. And then I want to let you do it at your own pace in silence without me saying anything. Okay? Any questions? You had a comment? Yes, you're right. We're tracking. Yes. Yes, beautiful. And a movement, yeah. Interesting. Thank you for that. So, all right, let's begin. We close your eyes if you would like. Their hands are extended upward. God beyond us or above us, transcendent mystery. So a little bit of silence to meditate on that. God, transcendent mystery. Doing more for us than we can hope for or imagine, more than our minds can comprehend. God beside us, hands out. Incarnate companion, the Spirit is enfleshed, embodied. God in the people around you in this room, the people in this class. God in creation, the indwelling spirit of God in all of creation. And God within us, bringing your hands over your heart, the breath of God in us, breathing in us new life, moment by moment, breath by breath, indwelling spirit. Changing the words, but keeping the gestures, that same rhythm now. Hands up, creator. Creator God, Father, Mother, birther of all that is, Redeemer out to the side, redeeming us, setting us free, bringing us home. Sanctifier, sanctifying to us our greatest distress, being with us in our anxieties, our fears. Father, hands up, Father, Abba, Son, Holy Spirit. I want to give you a couple of minutes just at your own pace. I'll be quiet. I'll be silent. Just use these gestures as you feel led to pray with your body, mind, spirit, your entire being. Feel free to repeat the gestures, move at your own pace. Amen. Perhaps you had a sense of how letting your body be a part of your prayer provides for more access to the Spirit, more awareness of the presence. So the intent really in this hour is to become more aware of and surrendered to God's presence through body awareness or body movement. And just to ground it a little bit in scripture, 1 Corinthians 6:19, Paul, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? The Jesuit priest Teilhard de Chardin said that we're not physical beings having spiritual experiences. We're spiritual beings having an embodied experience. And the spirit is embodied within the temple of our physical bodies. And in Acts, in God, we live and move and have our being. There's the movement. That movement can be a way of opening to God. And we'll be looking at that a little bit more in just a minute. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So we're all lovely people, but none of us are angels. And by that, I don't mean that as a criticism or statement about your moral character, like, Uncle Henry, he's no angel, as we sometimes say, but I mean it really more as an ontological statement, a statement about our being. And that is, angels are disembodied spirits that may appear in visions and seem to be present, but are disembodied spirits, whereas all human beings that I know are embodied. Now, we talk about sometimes having an out-of-body experience, but we are embodied. We are body, mind, and spirit intertwined, interrelated, interconnected, embodied and soul and spirited, all three together. And some mysteriously Trinitarian ontological being, body, mind, and spirit, just like a cake, which consists of flour, sugar, and salt. Once it's made, you can't really separate that out. Now, we speak about having a body in order to diagnose something that might be wrong, but truly, the body and the spirit are very intertwined, interconnected, as is our minds. And this is affirmed, this unity of body, mind, and spirit, particularly in the contemplative tradition. And we get this from spiritual leaders, both East and West. And just to give a couple of examples of this interconnectedness of body, soul, and spirit. I think Larry King died last year, didn't he? But there was an interview that Larry King conducted with the Dalai Lama years ago, and he asked, because the Dalai Lama of spirituality of the East said, well, what can the people of the West do to become more spiritually alive and in tune with the spirit? And, we would think, well, maybe the Dalai Lama would say, well, we would practice meditation, or we would do this. But his answer was really sort of surprising and revealing. Got that little twinkle in his eye and that smile. And he said, don't eat so much. And well, here we are in season of fasting, but what is our relationship with food and drink? And does that have anything to do? Of course it does, with our spirit, as anything with our body. Evagrius of Ponticus was a 4th century desert father who wrote about what he called the 8 deadly thoughts, and how what we think with our mind affects our spirits. And it's interesting that of those 8, they eventually Pope Gregory the Great turned them into the 7 deadly sins. But the first 3 really have to do with body, with our bodies. So the first deadly thought was gluttony. And so what is our relationship with food and drink? And it's interesting because we have to have it because we're embodied. We have to have food. We have to have drink. But the relationship that we have with food and drink, and the mental preoccupation that can happen with that, and even into extreme addictions with certain eating disorders or food and drink or what have you, certainly affect our spirits, our souls. So my point is that body as the temple of the spirit and the mind are so intertwined that we can't just say, I have a spiritual life and then I have no attention at all to what is going on with my body. So the first one was gluttony. The second one was lust. What is our relationship to our sexual energy and desires? And certainly there can be mental preoccupation with sexuality, sexual addiction, pornography, etc. So we can't separate out our bodies and from our minds and our spirit. They're intertwined. And Evagrius was really onto this in the 4th century, writing about these thoughts that we have about our bodies and and our sexuality as we have. It's how we continue to procreate and how we exist as a race. And the integration of that with the spirit is what the spiritual life is partly about, is the integration of our sexuality. And so we have a lot. Go ahead, question. Yeah. So my point is that, again, we don't have a spiritual life, and then over here we just have our own bodies, and what we do with our bodies, doesn't matter. So, Paul was writing about this when he was saying about prostitution and joining our bodies with a prostitute would be certainly affecting our spirits, our mind, our spirituality. But not only that, but the whole idea that there's such a thing as consenting sexual relationships where there is, agreed upon, and we're going to approach this two people like they would play a game of tennis. You like tennis? I like tennis. Let's play a game of tennis. Well, the idea here is you can't treat your sexual relations, your sexual energy as not having an effect upon your soul and your spiritual well-being and your body. So there's reason for saying there's no such thing as safe sex. All sex involves vulnerability of the soul. It involves a joining together, not just of the body, but of spirit and spiritual heart. So there has to be wisdom and discernment about our bodies and these desires that we have, whether it be food and drink, whether it be our sexual life. And then the other one was avarice, the love of money. And Jesus had 30-something parables. Over half of them had to do with how we relate to material things. And so the whole idea of we need shelter, we need food, we need clothing, but there's something that can go awry there, and there can be a preoccupation, a mental preoccupation. We call it materialism. I can't get enough. I have to have more. And so my point in all of this is the body and the mind and the spirit are intertwined. We don't just have a body, and we can't separate that part of life from our spiritual life. So the integration of this is part of what prayer is about and part of what discernment is about. Anyway, the use of the body in prayer. I want to move on to these different spiritual leaders who teach us such. And St. Ignatius was 16th century mystic, founder of the Jesuit order, and he gave us some beautiful ways of praying with the Gospels. But it's interesting that when he was writing the spiritual exercises about how to pray with Scripture, he said, in meditating on the Gospels, he said, I will enter upon the meditation, now kneeling, now prostrate upon the ground, now lying face upwards, now seated, now standing, always being intent on seeking what I desire. And what he desired was deeper intimacy with God. And he is pointing out in the 16th century to get your body involved in your prayer. And when he would pray the Gospels, he would try out different postures, and he lists them there. And each posture seemed to be have the potential for opening up greater intimacy with the Spirit. You see what I'm saying? And he said, I will try this out, and then I will try that out, and hit all these different postures. He went on to say, and it's when I felt the connection or the openness to the Spirit, I would not rush past it, but I would remain in that position or that posture until I felt that the consolation had passed, and then I might try another posture. But it's just amazing because this was pre-enlightenment. We're going to get to this in a minute about how we often think of prayer as from here up, from the head up. We're thinking about God, and we've forgotten to get our bodies involved in our prayer. And so here Ignatius is just matter-of-factly saying, this is the way I pray. And look at all the ways that his body might be involved. So you might be challenged by this because it might seem foreign to you, but you might try some of these postures when you're doing a biblical study in your own private devotion. The Buddha taught that there was no higher form of practice than body awareness, and that enlightenment could be experienced through it. We're often, you've heard, listen to your body. What is it telling you? And there are often thoughts that we have. Going back to Vegas, the 8 deadly thoughts, he said one of the deadly thoughts is anger about how somebody has mistreated us. And if you've ever had anger towards someone that's mistreated you, you know that it registers in the body. You know, what is this pain in my neck? You know, well, he's the pain in the neck. And so the body has a wisdom of its own, often communicating to us and revealing to us thoughts, feelings, things that we are carrying. And we listen to what the body is saying for spiritual wisdom, not just for physical health. There's a great story. I'm just tell this as an aside. There's a story about a monk who was the abbot of a monastery, and he was going to the monastic community was going to be visited by the superior general of the order. It's a kind of important authority kind of figure, and so he came, and they worked to get everything right, make everything good. And the abbot, everything went well, and after it was all over and the superior general left, the abbot called the monks together and said, "I'm going on retreat." And they said, "Why?" And they said, "Because of something that happened when the superior general came. I'm going on retreat." And they said, "Well, what happened? We thought everything went really well." And he said, "Well, the reason I'm going on retreat is because when the superior general came to visit, my palms broke out in sweat. And when a person of lower status comes to the monastery, that doesn't happen." He noticed his need for approval happening in his body just by the sweat on the palms. And he said, "I need to go and pray and ask God remove my need of approval of those in authority." My point in that is, if you pay real close attention, your body can teach you things about what your thoughts are, and that often shows up in the body when we didn't realize it in our thought life. Is this making sense? Okay. The Hebrew people spoke of dancing as praying with the bones, and here we get back to dancing. And body awareness and enlightenment could be experienced through movement. And the psalmist celebrates our embodiment in Psalm 139. "I will thank you, O Holy One. I am wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know it well. My body was not hidden from you while I was being made in secret and woven in the depths of my mother's womb." St. Paul, I've already quoted this, encouraged us to be aware of our body-spirit connection. Therefore, he says, glorify God in your body. So our bodies are wonderfully made. They are gifts. It communicates, the body communicates through symbolic language and gesture. We know that. A handshake, a pat on the back, a friendly smile, which we miss because we all have our mask on. We really miss that. And preaching to cameras is very hard for clergy. You know, we really miss the flow and the embodied communication that goes on in worship. So we're experiencing some of that in this pandemic. So we have these great communications that take place. A smile, a lot can be said with the eyes. But this is human. This is not just Christian spirituality. These postures. So we see this, some examples. The Hasidic Jew rocking before the Wailing Wall. There's a prayer going on just with the body. The Buddhist sitting in lotus position. There's a posture of attentiveness. Are we attentive in worship and in our liturgy? The Muslim prostrating toward Mecca, a prayer of self-offering to Allah, self-surrender. The yogi balancing in asana, that those who practice, there's a balance that can be felt in particular postures. There's something going on here more than just the body. It gives rise to spiritual awareness. The dervish spinning. It's possible to be still and act and touch inner stillness while still moving. It's possible to be moving in a very busy day, but connect to inner stillness and consecrating the movement as a prayer. The Christian making the sign of the cross, genuflecting, kneeling. Those of us who are involved with liturgical worship, I think there's a desire to worship God with our whole being. And it may be that we are a little frightened by the Pentecostals who seem to be, in their expression of worship, very demonstrative. And sometimes we feel like the fire has gotten out of the fireplace. There's no boundaries, and things are happening that sort of got to make us uneasy. And so maybe we find a more structured approach, but still involving our bodies. Think about that. And it's not that we just sit and listen for an hour, but we make the sign of the cross. We stand, we sing praises, we come forward, we kneel, we put our hand. And so there may be, even with kind of the liturgical traditions, unconscious yet express need to worship God with our whole being.
The charismatic period in our community.
And we had the charismatic, and there still are a charismatic Episcopal Church. By that, I guess we mean an emphasis on the gifts of the Spirit, and more demonstrative expressions with the body.
And in Judaism, it's the Sabbath, where they turn for the angel bringing, and also to the rock.
Yes.
And when they take the scroll and they even kiss the scroll.
Yeah. Yes. But so part of this is, to free us up to be okay with how, when the Spirit moves, there can be expressions with the body. And then when the body is involved, it opens up to greater access of the Spirit's movement as well. Outer movements of the body, if you do them prayerfully and mindfully, they put us in touch with the Spirit. Sometimes, my spirit is not really engaged in worship, but I need to get my carcass to the place and kneel down, make the sound, get going with my body, and then the Spirit can come and sort of come in to the body's expression of worship and prayer. Also giving, so that's the point, giving expression to our prayers with our bodies creates a deeper awareness of the Spirit, and deeper availability happens. We become more relaxed, alert, awake to the Spirit. So if you're sitting and trying to do contemplative prayer and you're groggy and sleepy, maybe the prayer becomes a walk out in creation like we talked about last week. And you get some blood flowing and some oxygen, then you come back and maybe you're able to sit in a posture of relaxed alertness better, because you've also expressed your prayer through your body. Paying attention to what the body's calling for in terms of prayer. How is the Spirit moving? What do you need? How is God inviting you to dance with God now? That's a great. This is Betty. She's sharing a poem with.
Earth is crowned with
That's good. That's real good. Earth.
So I think about that when in the summertime, when all the flowers and fruit around here out back, the leaves are all over it, and I stop and I say, there's something going on here. Beyond, maybe beyond us
Yes.
here, but it's good.
Beautiful. And touching, that's a key word, isn't it? Touching, or we get touched by the wind, or we get touched by the sunlight. Our bodies are involved.
What about abstinence before receiving the body and blood of our Lord? Some communions, like the Orthodox, 2 days.
Yes.
Roman Catholic, 12.
Yes. So Bob's asking the question about abstinence before receiving communion. And what is the spirit of that, fasting and all of that? But let me go back just for a quick comment on that. To me is like the whole idea, what is our relationship to food and drink? And sometimes we overeat or we overdrink because we are not in touch with our deeper spiritual need. And so sometimes we fast a little bit, we abstain a little bit to be aware of our spiritual hunger and our spiritual thirst. But that's a discernment, I think, that the individual has to make. Are you led to that? Are you called to that? Are you doing it just out of oughtness or obligatory kind of fast? You see what I'm saying? So, but it is noticing what's going on with our appetites and our spiritual hunger and spiritual thirst. Let's look at the opposite of this too, though, is that when the Spirit moves, the Spirit often, thank you, Susan, that's good. Needed that.
There's tea and water back there.
So sometimes when the Spirit moves, the Spirit in our heart seeks to be expressed physically. So the Spirit may be sort of not very accessible, and we do movement to open the flow of the Spirit, but it also can go the other way. The Spirit can move, and it's expressed because we're embodied beings. It's expressed. And one of the interesting ones here for me is St. Ignatius said, if you want to be aware of the interior movement of the Spirit, you can look for 5 things. It was not an exhaustive list, but an increase of faith, hope, and love in your spirit. You have an increase of faith, hope, and love. You have a feeling of peace. You have an ordering of your inordinate attachments. That is where Jesus says, seek first the presence and the power of God. These other things will be added unto you. And those were physical things or people's praise or people like it. They can be inordinate. They can be running the show. But if we have first the presence and power of God, these things that we need, like food and drink and material things, they're still in our lives, but they have their proper place. There's an ordering of our inordinate attachments that comes through prayer. So as one person put it, I have my attachments, but they no longer have me. I have a relationship with food and drink. I have a relationship with my sexual energy and desires. I have a relationship with money and material things, but they need to be in their proper place. The tail doesn't need to be wagging the dog. And so through prayer, these bodily needs that are good and they provide wonderful enjoyment if they're ordered, they begin to find their place. Well, Ignatius was talking about one of the signs of spiritual maturity and growth is the ordering of our inordinate attachments. Does that make sense? And then we have peace and then we have increase of faith. But he goes on and he says, one that was really focused on the body, he says, you can be aware of the Spirit's movement in you through what he called the gift of tears. So I thought about that a lot and really started paying attention to that, because I was taught when I was growing up, boys don't cry and big boys really don't cry. And I was always apologetic. I felt ashamed and embarrassed with tears. And I went on a retreat outside of Chicago, and it was led by a Dominican monk, and it was a retreat for men, and it had to do with the healing of hurt within male relationships. My father and I had a good relationship, but he was a alcoholic, and there was lots of hurt, and there was lots of love. He provided in beautiful ways for me and emotional ways, but there was lots of pain. But I went on this retreat, and so we were in groups of 2, and there was a meditation being read about forgiving any male in your life that had hurt you. And as the meditation was being read, the Spirit in me was praying, and the gift of tears, but I didn't know it was a gift. The tears started flowing, and it was like the dam broke, and I wept. I mean, just uncontrollably wept. And we were in a group. And when it was over, I think I was probably my late 20s, but I went up to the monk. I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know, how embarrassing. And so I got a letter from him, and it said, never apologize for the sacred water of your tears. That when tears come like that in time of prayer, or there's a healing taking place that the mind can't figure out. And he said, I challenge you never to apologize, and see your tears as gift and healing. God reveals pain in order to heal and cleanse, the cleansing water. He said, the sacred water of your tears. And I said that day after I got his letter that I would never apologize again. And I would see when I tear up or when something causes me to weep, I will not apologize. I will see it as prayer, one of the interior movements of the Spirit coming through my body. So I'm going into all this because I think we need to love our bodies and listen to them and see how the Spirit is praying through our bodies and with our bodies. And, you know, as I said, what is that pain in the neck? It's because I've got hurt and anger towards somebody. Or what are those tears about? It's because I want healing and comfort. You with me? So, and just a sequel to that. So I went home from that retreat and had a wonderful talk with my dad. And when he died, which was probably 6 or 7 years after that, he was not a religious man. And the Presbyterian minister they belonged, he was kind of a nominal member of the Presbyterian church. And the Presbyterian minister I knew was struggling with, I don't know, kind of how to preach his funeral. I said, I'll do it. And so I got up to preach my dad's funeral, and, I felt I was ready. I was composed. I knew what I wanted to say. And I started, and boy, the emotion just came, and I started to cry a little bit. And I said, give me a minute. I didn't say, I'm sorry. Right. Give me a minute. I didn't say that. The monk's words came back to me. Thank you for the sacred water. Thank you for my dad. Thank you for our healing that we had. Thank you for his life. And give me a minute. So I'm really going off sharing here in a personal way, but
that's really important, because when we accompany death, we have a physical feeling, even if they're not relatives.
Yes.
It affects our body.
Yes.
And in healthcare, I, thank heaven, never noticed disrespect at the time of death. That people were very respectful.
Right.
And I think it affects our body.
Right. Thank you. So in an article entitled "You Fill Up My Senses," sounds like John Denver's song, which is a beautiful prayer in creation, writing about Annie, I think, but you fill up my senses like a night in the far. Woo. Okay.
I preached on that one.
You did?
I did.
That's great. That's wonderful. Theologian Janet Ruffing writes, return to the body is replacing flight from the body. And appreciation for all forms of embodiment is rapidly becoming a hallmark of postmodern spirituality. What a sentence. But I think let's talk about the flight from the body for just a couple little notation points here. In the early centuries of the Christian faith, flight from the body appeared in some schools of thought which were seen as heresies. One was Gnosticism. Gnosticism had its place in terms of wisdom, but one of the thoughts of Gnosticism is I have a good spirit and it's trapped in an evil body. And Jesus has the gnosis, the gnosis of Gnosis to tell me how to get this good spirit out from the body, and he's going to give me this wisdom. I'm going to escape from this bad body that I have. And so he comes, and because the body's bad, he couldn't really be fully human. He had to appear to be human, which was another heresy called docetism. Docetism means to appear to be. He wasn't really human. He had to appear to be to help get our good spirits out of this. Well, the Christian church said, no, we believe in the incarnation. We believe that our bodies are good. They're gifts from God, that the spirit that the matter matters, that the spiritual comes through the material. And so if you stop and think about that, how you were raised to think about your body, how you were raised to think about sexuality, how you, the whole thing and where the church is and all of that, what is it that we teach? Well, I think we have some recovering to do. And this is what Janet Ruffing is saying, is that we are beginning to celebrate and worship with our bodies, not just pray for them when they're sick, but to the flight from the body that took place in the early centuries of docetism and all of that, we're going to get to another point where that there was a flight around the way St. Paul writes about the flesh. The flesh is bad and the spirit is good. But he has two different words there. The soma is the body, which when he talks about the flesh, he's talking about sarx. And Richard Rohr says he's really saying it's the ego cut off from the spirit's awareness of the spirit. So what he's saying is if you are living an embodied existence cut off from your knowing who you are in God, you're headed for trouble. But he doesn't say the body per se is evil. He's using flesh as ego, cut off from spirit. The mind cut off from the spirit. Whereas soma, the body, is not putting that down. So there's so much here theologically and historically to help us be clear about the fact that we are wonderfully made, that when God created our bodies, we know this is good. This is the spirit. This is part of our spirituality as well. You see what I'm saying? We're not. So the flight from the body also took place, at least in Western Christianity, as a result of the Enlightenment. And that was that there was so much put on reason in the Enlightenment. The way to truth is through reason, through science, through reason, and even thinking about God. We come up with the right doctrine. We come out with the right dogma, which is all good to do and struggle with. But in the emphasis of the Enlightenment on reason, we start thinking of prayer as being only here up. That I'll know the truth when I can just think rightly enough, orthodox, right belief. If I can get right belief, and I forget that there's another dimension of my knowing the truth, that is in terms of, and that involves my body. And so the Enlightenment is sort of a flight from the body. And what Janet Ruffing is saying is that we're rediscovering that reason and intellect is not the only way of knowing God's presence. And so we're seeing this revival in or renaissance in body prayer. And this is what some of it looks like. Liturgical dance, walking the labyrinth. You know, how is that coming about? Why are so many people drawn to walking the labyrinth? Why are people doing yoga? And why are people going to Tai Chi and other expressions of physical spirituality? You see what I'm saying? Because there's been so much, we can't just sit and think about God all the time. We're cutting off part of our way of knowing God. And so we don't want to go over and say, okay, well, I'm never going to do intellectual capacity for understanding God. It's not that, but we need to bring it together to get past this body-spirit dualism. So we're rediscovering that even the most fundamental functions, when done mindfully, can be a form of prayer, like we've been doing, breathing. Just a little, being aware of your breath. Whose breath is that? The divine breath, God breathing in Adam and Eve the breath of life. So a body prayer can just be simply being aware of your breath as gift from God and being with that breath. So some of this is just very basic, but doing it with intentionality, breathing, walking meditations, walking mindfully, and being present to each step. And Paul calls it walking in step with the Spirit. I have arrived. I am at home. I have arrived with each step. I'm at home. I'm arrived. I'm at home in the here and now. Walking can calm, release tension, be present. You can practice it walking from one meeting to the next. A little mantra, you know, I've arrived. I'm at home. Touching each, being aware of each step. It's the Spirit, walking in step with the Spirit. You're an incarnate being. That the actual walking is a gift. So sitting, eating. We have this whole thing about mindful eating. Now they're teaching it so that you will, you know, lose weight. You won't eat in such a hurry. And that's all well and good, you know. Put your fork down between each bite, you know. But mindful eating is also an awareness, really, of the presence of God in each bite. Each God is in this bite because the sun is in the food, the light, the rain is in the, for those who harvest it. It's all, we're all one. And we're actually eating mindfully with awareness of our interconnection. That food is a gift from the universe, the one universe, and all that has come together to give me that bite of food. And that's eating mindfully or prayerfully. And so all these can be ways of prayer: walking, sitting. You can do some more gestures and simple prayers that I wanted to share with you that you might try this week. And but let me stop. Anybody want to say anything, make a comment, an insight, or a question?
I think it's good in church when I see people in prayer open their hands in a gesture to receive the Spirit. I think that's helpful, and just as so many things, you know, just as a priest, the blessing of the orans, to open your chest in prayer like that is such a gift. And I mean, anybody could do it at home, you know. I mean, just to physically do something in recognition that you're doing this in prayer.
Yes.
Sign of the cross.
Yeah.
Sign of the cross.
So helpful.
When you hear the gospel.
Yes.
Yes.
You know,
That's one of the reasons that I like yoga so much, is it incorporates
yes.
all of this. It has the breath, it has the movement of the stillness of the mind, it
Yes.
has the heart, and there are certain postures that are heart openers.
Yes.
So it's just, it's amazing.
Mhm.
What things that you're
Yeah.
in reference to.
Yes, yes. So
And Tai Chi too, to move the chi, right?
the
That's-
energy.
Right.
Can you tell us what asana is? This is the posture.
Yeah.
What is the word?
Asana.
Asana. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's a posture.
Marshall, it's Jackie on Zoom. I really appreciate everything, and I enjoyed about the wisdom of the body,
Yeah.
and because I've experienced that so much. And my favorite saying, which I've been saying for quite a while, is the stomach doesn't lie.
Uh-huh. Okay. The stomach doesn't lie.
That's where we carry a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. This is wonderful.
Good. Good. So there are a few prayer practices. Thank you, Jackie. One we've done, number one, breath prayer with sacred word, or, and I like the word ruach because it's breath in spirit, breath, wind, all the same in scripture. Based on the creation story, God breathing into Adam and the breath of life. So you can, a body prayer can, we've done this, so I'm not going to rehash that. But number two can be a wonderful, I've found this to be really helpful. It doesn't take very long. You can do it just kind of off by yourself during the day, but it's called coming to your senses. And it's knowing that God is manifesting God's presence and life in you and through your five senses. The story is about the priest that was doing the children's homily and said, well, name the seven wonders of the world. Have you heard this? And so they, as a group, can you name the seven wonders of the world? And he said, they said, the pyramids in Egypt, the Niagara Falls. And one little girl had her hand up and pulled it down. And he said, what were you going to say? And she said, no, I got it wrong. And he said, no, what were you going to say? And she said, well, I thought it was a wonder that I can see and I can hear and I can touch, I can taste, I can smell. And all of that allows me to take in love and give love. So we're wonderfully made. Let's come to our senses as prayer. Like for example, is you can simply pray with your eyes open, and really you are speaking to God here now in my seeing, in the gift of my seeing, and just then look, slow down and look. You are here now in my seeing. You're speaking to God, and you're realizing that God is seeing through you. And you carry that prayer on out. And Bonaventure said, you start praying with the eye of the heart. You start seeing as God sees. You see the blessing in that person. You see the neediness of this person. You are here now in my seeing. You're here now in my hearing. Just be aware of the miracle that we can hear. And as we get older, we're starting to experience some diminishment of that hearing. And it's like, oh my goodness, what a gift to be able to hear. You're here now in my touching, and just like giving thanks. I can touch this table. I can touch the breeze as the breeze touches me. You see what I mean? You touch and you come to your senses. You're here now in my tasting the food. And in the scent of smell, the most powerful scent in terms of memory is the smell. And so you come home to your senses and give thanks for each one as a prayer. And slowly it take about a minute with each one. It's a great 5-minute meditation. Come to your senses, and it gets me out of my mind and gets me in the here and now. So my mind is off somewhere worrying about something. I can't worry if I'm coming home to my 5 senses, which all of which allows me to receive love and give love. And then these simple gestures that we did, God above us, transcendent mystery, beside us, within us. And then your love be done. So we did that this morning. I didn't get to one other, which was the first one, was going to be the opening, but we'll do that next week. I go leave time to get tested and ready to go for the next service. But thank y'all. Don't forget, next week, I think, is week 7, and it's paradox. We'll be talking about paradoxes. Huh? No, creation. 6 weeks. Creation. Next week will be creation, which we already touched on some this morning. Anybody else real quick? Susan and we are not going to go hurry, but we're going to go now.
All right. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.